Fran, I'd say since the latter part of 1980, there's been an obvious crackdown on prostitution in New York State, and we are feeling the results of that crackdown as these girls are now invading Niagara Falls and surrounding areas.
Some of them are only babies, 14, 16 years old. They aren't but babies. We've sit and watched the other girls train the younger girls.
We virtually have no laws in Canada against prostitution.
So we have the laws to work with, we have the penalties, we have the manpower, we have the training, and we have the ability. And I constantly say it, and I'll say it again, that Buffalo is one of the cleanest cities in the nation.
On Channel 17 Reports this week, we'll examine the invasion of American prostitutes into Niagara Falls, Ontario. We'll explore the crackdown on hookers in Buffalo, which has forced these ladies of the night to flee north of the border to ply their ages-old trade. And we'll learn how housewives here are battling the problem, as well as the frustration of authorities who are hampered by weak Canadian laws governing prostitution. How do these prostitutes get into your country?
They do under various means, Fran. They've been known to come in by taxi, by their pimp, by their own means of transportation, and a large number come in by bus on the indication they are coming to bingo here in Niagara Falls.
Do you have any idea how many girls are soliciting here and what age groups?
The numbers vary every night, but we do have an average of about 30 to 40 girls that are active on a extremely busy night. I've seen as many as 60. And ages vary anywhere from 13 to mid-40s.
What area is being infiltrated by the American hookers?
The area of Bridge and Erie here in Niagara Falls has long been an area where prostitution has been active, and this block, I could describe the corners would be Bridge and Erie, Park Street, and Zimmerman Avenue are all it seems to be centered within a 1 or 2 block area.
A 1 or 2 block area from your police department and City Hall?
That's correct. Fran, I'd say since the latter part of 1980, there's been an obvious crackdown on prostitution in New York State, and we are feeling the results of that crackdown as these girls are now invading Niagara Falls and surrounding areas.
I'm very glad to see them go. I'm sorry that they go to any specific community because I know there'll be the headache there that they have been here. But I'm very, very glad to see them go wherever they go. And I think that it's attributed to, first of all, the laws that we have to work with in New York State that are very clear is pertaining to prostitution, pertaining to what evidence is required, and the loitering laws, and they're very, very effective. And the manpower that's been stepped up and been used and are attacked against them. And I think that's why they left. And also, there's been a tremendous increase in what I always consider the answer to most crime problems, and that's jail. I have books over there where they, the judges now, the average sentence is 60, 90 days, 30 days. Previously it was 5 days, 10 days, just plea, reduced plea, and so on. Now they've been very, very tough, and I attribute that to the fact of Mayor Griffin and Police Commissioner Cunningham putting more or less, calling the attention, the problem that we're arresting these girls, but nothing, not too much is happening to them. Now they're going away, which they should do, it should be put away.
How many visitors do you have up here in Niagara Falls, Ontario yearly?
We have estimates anywhere from 15 to 18 million tourists come through the city in a year.
It's a lovely tourist mecca, but it appears to be stigmatized by prostitution. Now, where does the blame fall?
Well, this is something that has occurred to the point where we are concerned about it in the last couple of years. And I think the problem exists because of the severity of the laws in the Buffalo area and the inadequacy of the laws in Canada, and this is right across Canada. It's not a local situation. Fortunately, it's not directly in the tourist section, but it is affecting our community, and many of our citizens are very concerned about the fact that this does exist.
I think it's generally felt that our laws are more lax here in Canada, and there's a greater control in the situation across the border, and so this is why they're coming here.
Why can't you crack down on prostitution as the Buffalo police have?
We're restricted by law. Soliciting for the purposes of prostitution now, as a result of a Supreme Court decision, the words defined by the Supreme Court, a girl must be pressing and persistent in her behavior in order to be found guilty of soliciting. And we have never been able to define the meaning of the word pressing and persistent, and therefore have not been able to succeed in any charges of soliciting. We've had to resort to other criminal code offenses as a result of prostitution for successful prosecution in our courts.
What other codes?
Well, our other offenses that we've been successful with to date are offenses of gross indecency. There may have been charges of robbery, of theft, all as a result of acts of prostitution.
What is the status of Chippewa Street and some of the other locations that these ladies of the night had frequented so often in Buffalo?
There's some prostitution. I firmly believe there always will be, but it's a very, very low level. We don't violate anyone's rights. We don't make mass arrests, but yet we're effective. Now, these girls, when they're told to leave, when they're suggested that they leave the corner, that possibly may be arrested, they'll leave. They'll leave. And that's, they have to go somewhere else, and that, to me, indicates why they get out of the city of Buffalo, because it's just too tough on them. But in attacking prostitution, first of all, you have to have a good law. You have to have a workable law. You can't send me out and say, clean up the prostitutes, when I can't work within the framework of the law, because they'll run all over you, and they know that. Now, when we had the 15-day maximum penalty, now it's 90 days. When we had the 15-day maximum penalty, we were flooded with them. They're coming from all over the country. Go up to Buffalo, go to New York City. The whole state was flooded with them. And then they changed that to a 90-day penalty, then we could work with it. But the 15-day penalty was useless for us.
Well, just how tough is it to convict a hooker?
It's very tough. You have to prove under the law that the woman has been pressing and persistent in her solicitation of her partner, and almost all of the girls that are working the streets are not pressing and persistent. They make their approach. If they're successful with the approach, they leave and with the man, and if they're not successful, they turn around and walk away and don't press it any further. I suppose there's from time to time there are occasions when they're persistent, but basically the cases we've had, they haven't been all that persistent. They seem to know what the law, what Hutt says, and what the law is, and they bring themselves and their actions within the parameters of that decision. All the Parliament, all the courts have done is interpret the word solicit. The offense is soliciting, not prostitution.
But the offense is soliciting only if it's pressing and persistent.
That's right.
So prostitution is, well, it's legal in Canada. Actually.
In my opinion, yes. The only offense connected with prostitution is if you solicit.
It must be very frustrating to you knowing that it's practically impossible to convict a prostitute.
Well, it's frustrating in the sense that it's very difficult to get a conviction, and I know the feeling of the people in Niagara Falls, for instance. They're so upset about the fact that there are so many prostitutes keep walking the streets. My position is that we prosecute under the criminal code, under the charges that you can lay under the criminal code, and if it's not an offense, it's not an offense. Then it's up to Parliament to determine whether or not they want this kind of activity, and if they do, then they don't do anything with the law, and if they don't, then they're going to have to amend it.
Now, you recently addressed the problem to the Federal Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada. Now, what did you tell these people?
Well, I think that we are in a unique situation in Canada simply because we are dealing with people who are from another country. Other large communities have a problem with prostitution, but not the same way we do. The people we are dealing with know exactly how far they can go with the law. I personally have gone by there with my family in the car, and the door has been opened and comments made. So if anybody walks on the street, you can imagine what they're subjected to. So it is a serious problem and one of concern.
Do you feel that after your presentation to the Federal Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of Canada that there may be a possibility that the law may be changed, new legislation?
I have to be optimistic about that. I was not particularly impressed with my meeting with the minister simply because he was very concerned about discrimination and about women's groups that come forward and cause him some political problems as far as the civil rights of individuals and particularly women are concerned. However, he has set up a Justice Committee to study this particular problem.
As far as soliciting is concerned, we are now no longer even attempting to enforce the law of soliciting for the purposes of prostitution because we accept the fact that we would not be successful in any criminal court. We are forced to turn to other legislation in the hopes of detaining prostitutes, such as the offenses I mentioned previous.
In other words, you're practically powerless, and it appears that prostitution is legal in Canada.
You hate to say that, but that's the way it looks.
The City Council now is preparing a bylaw, and their solicitors are working on this bylaw. They're taking a few weeks. They're being very careful about it, so that when they have it, it will be effective and be carefully drawn up.
Is there any national law that needs to be enacted, or will this bylaw cover it fairly well to suit the problem?
I think it'll cover it, providing it's upheld and it's not appealed to some higher court and thrown out, as laws have been before. Last year, one of these prostitutes actually jumped into a truck without any request by the driver, and he continued driving. She said, "Where are you going?" He says, "I'm going to the police station," at which she jumped out. So these girls are very bold. In fact, even last evening, as I was driving a gentleman home to his office in the downtown area, I was solicited from a distance myself by these girls. So they're very, very bold.
This area in the vicinity of the Whirlpool Bridge has long been known as the Tenderloin section of Niagara Falls, Ontario. Bounded by Erie, Bridge, Queen, and Park Streets, it's had its share of prostitutes and strip joints with male and female go-go dancers, but the neighbors took it in stride. Now with the influx of dozens of American hookers nightly, the housewives in this neighborhood aren't taking it lightly.
I understand that you housewives formed a hooker patrol. Tell me about it. How does it work?
Well, it's just a bunch of neighbors and friends and my sisters. We all got together and we decided we're going to demonstrate to see if we could get rid of them, because they're on the street, on the corner out here, and they're out there till 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning, and we couldn't sleep. And we'd go out and ask them to go, and they'd curse us, and we decided we'd have to do something about it ourselves.
And then what did you do?
We
What are some of the things you've done?
What's some of the things we've done? Okay. My neighbor, Emily, one evening we were sitting on the veranda, and she went and got the water hose, and she turned the water hose on them on the corner. And then another evening, they were out there in the corner carrying on, and she went with a dust mop or something and chased them up the street.
So many nights, I was already in the bed. I came downstairs, opened the door, and I yelled after the girl. I said, "I have the kid, go to school, you need to sleep." The car is about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, never stopped.
So what did you do about it?
Well, I said to my daughter, Kathy and Polly, I said, I'm going to do something about that. Stop that girl. She said, "Mom, don't do that. That girl maybe is dangerous. Something happened to you." Well, 4 in the corner were sitting in the corner there, and I took the hose, opened the tap, and I wet the hooker. And the police were right in the park and let me pass with the hose. And she said, "You make me wet." And the police stopped, and police in the car laughing. He let me pass. And I have a knot in my horse. She said, I'm not scared of you, go home. I said, don't worry, I'll come back. I go back and fix the horse, and I tripped right in the face. And she said, the police, you wait, all me wet. The police said, you have no business here in the corner. And she left.
How many do you figure have been here at a given time in an evening?
Oh, maybe 50 to 60 of them. They've been out there at one time.
And what is the makeup? Are they white, black, young, old?
Well, most of them, last summer, they were black girls, but now there's quite a few white girls out there. And some of them are only babies, 14, 16 years old. They aren't but babies. We've sit and watched the other girls train the younger girls, you know, how to turn a trick and, you know. And I sit in my porch one evening and I watched this man. He had a girl out there working. She was only a young girl, I'd say about 14, and he was showing her the ropes. He stood in the railroad track and told her how to approach cars, how she could tell a police officer when she got in the car, and the whole bit.
Have you or any members of your family ever been approached by Johns?
Oh, yes, definitely. Like my daughter, she's been approached, and as, of course, my neighbor's daughter. My nieces, when they come down this way, they think they're prostitutes.
Has anybody ever bothered you or any members of your family when you're
Oh,
around?
yes.
What's happened? Tell me about it.
We can't go in the store, we can't go out. A guy can pick you up, and I have a daughter, and she can't go out. And
She's been approached?
Mm-hmm. That's a time.
How about the men? Are the men from this area, or do you feel that they may be from out of area?
Oh, most likely they are around Niagara Falls. What I think is 90% of them are married. Why the hell don't they just stay home and they got a wife?
How do you fight this thing in your neighborhood?
Oh, it's pretty hard if the cops won't abide by the law and kick them off the street, throw them in jail or whatever you want to do with them.
Well, right now the law is so weak they can't do anything unless they find a hooker physically assaulting a John.
Really? I didn't know. Geez, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's pretty bad. I've even seen a guy on a motorbike pick one up and take off. And I wonder where they'd go.
Let's put it this way. If most of the guys would go home and mind their business and P's and Q's when they're finished drinking or whatever it is, it wouldn't cause as much problem. They're just as wrong as a woman. They should put a law against the man the same as a woman. That's my feelings.
What are your conclusions of the hooker patrol headed by Mrs. Courtney and the neighborhood housewives? How do you view them?
Well, I give them a lot of credit because I think they have been in the forefront of the battle. And they've been out there in rain and shine and in the cold, even during the winter. They're out there every day. So I think as far as effort put out in this battle, I think they deserve more credit than anyone else for the amount of effort that they're putting into it.
Have you talked to the girls?
Oh, yes.
What do they seem like?
All of them are real nice girls. They're well educated. There's nurses out there, teachers out there. You'd be amazed at the girls that are out there. They're nice girls, too.
Professionals.
Yes.
And other professions.
Yeah, but it's sad, though, because they're only out there for a quick buck. But they are nice girls. They respect us now. At one time they didn't, but they do now.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Huh? I don't know, maybe.
Can you pay for a room?
Where do you go?
Right around the corner.
To find out just how wide open the prostitution problem is in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Channel 17 reports went undercover with a hidden camera and concealed microphone in the active Hooker's Haven area on Bridge and Queen Streets. Within a short time, we were approached on 2 separate occasions by Buffalo streetwalkers hoping to turn a trick.
Were you ever on Chippewa?
No.
Did you work the city?
No.
Why would you pick Canada?
Because I have family in Buffalo.
Oh.
I go to school there also. I go to college there.
You go to college?
I go to Barnes Stratton.
And what are you doing hooking?
Because I need the money.
Do you know these coppers?
No. Come on, let's go get a room.
Well, you got a girlfriend?
Yeah, you want to get a girlfriend too?
Well, I got my buddy coming.
Oh, yeah.
Don't these police bother you at all here?
No.
How come?
Much. I don't know. What time's your buddy supposed to
He
come?
was supposed to pick me up any minute now.
Really? He's gonna go, you think?
Hmm?
You think he wants to go?
Well, if I go, he goes. But I don't know, you know, I was afraid maybe that the police here would bust you. They bust you in Buffalo.
Yeah, I see. I don't, you know.
And business isn't too good, huh?
No.
Are
Not
there-
on Mondays, anyways.
How many girls do you come over with?
I don't come over with anyone.
You come over by yourself? Do you have a guy, a pimp or anything like that?
No, I drive my car over.
Oh. What do you do normally for?
I work in a bakery.
Oh. Is there any way to keep these American hookers from coming over here?
Well, I have to say that the local police have really done an excellent job in cooperating with us and trying to keep this matter under control, but they are completely, hands are completely tied by the lack of legislation, and I really think the only way to do it is new legislation. That's got to be the answer, and we're trying to deal with it with a local bylaw also. In my opinion, it would just be an interim measure, but that will be coming to our council within the next week, and that will at least give us the opportunity to lay some charges on this problem.
I understand that many city officials and law enforcement people have been to Ottawa hoping to get a change in this law. How would that come about? Do you feel it may be possible to get a change in your federal law?
Well, anything's possible, but the federal government has to determine that they want to, in effect, ban prostitution. The present law is such that it doesn't ban prostitution. There's no prohibition on it, only the solicitation.
It never was.
In effect, there was under the old Section 175, but under Section 195.1, there isn't. There's no prohibition.
They have to have a workable law, or if you're like a cigar store Indian, you're just standing there. You can put all the policemen in the world there, and if he can't move, if he can't make arrest, if he can't make these people fear him, then you're going to have them, they'll walk right all over you. They'll knock you right off the corner, and that's what we had when we were faced with the 15-day penalty. It was almost impossible to stop them. 15 days, they'd go over in court, they'd laugh at you, and they'd be right back. And our streets were flooded with them. Our businesses were deteriorating. People became prisoners in their own homes. People were afraid to come into the downtown area, and all those negative things that happened. And when they made it up to 90 days again, then we were able to bring them before the courts and to get them stiff sentence and to make them afraid of the law, afraid of the law.
Do you have any knowledge of any violence against any of these prostitutes or death of any of these prostitutes? We hear these little rumors about town that one of them may have been murdered.
That's the story that I have heard, that this was the case. And the local Salvation Army officer told me recently that he got a call from our local police asking if they could put a girl up overnight. And he was going to make some arrangements. This was about 2 o'clock in the morning. Then the police called him back and said that she was going to be going back to Buffalo, because by that hour of the morning, her pimp would be so inebriated that he wouldn't know what was going on anyway. But she was afraid to go back to Buffalo because she had no money. She was tossed out of a car and had no money and was afraid to meet her pimp or whatever it is. So there's a lot of violence. Some of the girls, I understand, have been beaten up, and so it's not all a rosy picture. It's not an easy thing for these girls.
What are your thoughts on the Canadian justice system dealing with prostitution?
I think it's very, very weak. I really do. I think they can do something about it. Well, let's face it, they have to, because it's getting out of hand now. Now, this summer down here, it's going to be wild if we haven't got that bill through.
The hooker's haven, huh?
Tell me about it. Yeah, it is a hooker's haven.
So what can be done to toughen the law? How do you get a tough law here? And, you know, this is not only here, it's in all of Canada. How do you get a tougher law against prostitution?
Well, I don't know. There's got to be a way.
I think an amendment to our current laws would be a very simple amendment, would be just that any girl that is found, or anyone, not just female, anyone found loitering for the purposes of prostitution could be found guilty of an offense and therefore give us a means of control. Just the loitering for the purposes of prostitution would be all we ask.
Now, is this in the works now, or?
I believe it is. We have some, I know many cities have representation now to the federal government in this same area with the hope of changing the law.
We're working on a local municipal bylaw that has been used in the Calgary and Montreal area. They have been appealed, but it appears that we may get an interim solution to the problem until federal law is changed.
Well, the way it appears now with your current law that prostitution can be wide open here in Canada. What's your opinion?
Well, it's only my opinion, but I agree with you. Under the section, there's no prohibition against prostitution. Section 195.1 says every person who solicits any person in a public place for the purpose of prostitution is guilty of an offense. It's not the offense of prostitution, it's the offense of soliciting. So as long as the person is not pressing and persistent, she can carry on the trade of a prostitute. So what you have is prostitution, there's no prohibition on it, only soliciting. You can't have a bawdy house or a bordello. You can't have a place of assignation where they go. But under the way our act is, our code is constituted right now, I don't see any prohibition on a group of girls, for instance, who are prostitutes, renting a store, advertising the fact that they're prostitutes. And they could do it discreetly in an ad. They could have a storefront. Person, or John, or whoever wants to avail themselves of their services, could come in and make an appointment to go to his hotel room, for instance, and engage in the sexual activity that he wants, and leave. So long as they're not pressing and they're not persistent, and so long as they are not going to the same place all the time. And I just think that the law is that loose right now that could be, that type of an establishment could be set up, and there's nothing we can do about it under the criminal code.
This is your opinion.
That's only my own opinion, but my reading of it, I don't see how you can stop it, bearing in mind there's nothing pressing, there's nothing persistent, and the offense is soliciting.
It's quite shocking what you're saying.
Well, sure it is, but I think it's possible. And I think if that happens, then you may hear a hue and cry coming up, and then maybe something will be done about it. But until that happens, and if Parliament in its wisdom says we don't have anything against prostitution, it's an honorable trade, well then I suppose in bylaws of cities we'll have to license them.